My best friend grabbed me by both arms in the school parking lot and yanked me behind the dumpsters and shoved her phone in my face. Someone is following me. Her hands were shaking and she scrolled through a private account she'd been keeping for weeks. Feeling watched again. I can't sleep anymore. He knows where I am. I grabbed the phone and gripped her wrist. Who is this? I don't know. Someone keeps showing up where I am. At the store, at work, someone left a note on my windshield that said, "You're not safe at home. Did you tell your dad?" He'd freak out. She grabbed both my hands and squeezed so hard the friendship bracelet on her wrist dug into my skin. I'd made it for her in 8th grade. Purple thread with a tiny silver bead. She never took it off. If anything ever happens to me, promise you won't stop looking. Nothing is going to happen to you. Promise me. I promise. She grabbed me and hugged me so tight my feet left the ground. She pulled back and dug through her bag for her inhaler and took 2 puffs and shoved it back and wiped her eyes. She bumped her shoulder into mine. I'm probably being dramatic. This was the girl who texted me at 2 in the morning asking if fish get thirsty, who threw chips at my face in this same parking lot until I couldn't breathe from laughing. She wasn't being dramatic. You're not being dramatic, and I'm not going anywhere. I have to go. My dad's picking me up. A car pulled into the lot. Her dad waved from the window, and she jogged to the car and turned around and waved at me with her bracelet catching the sun. Remember your promise. He leaned over and kissed the top of her head, and they drove away. She didn't come to school. Her seat was empty in first period, and I told myself she was late. Empty in second, and I texted her. Empty in third, and I called. By lunch, I was shaking, and by the final bell, I sprinted to my car and drove to her house so fast I ran a stop sign. Her car was in the driveway. Her bedroom light was off. I pressed my face against her window, and her inhaler was sitting on her nightstand. She doesn't go anywhere without that inhaler. I slammed my palm against the glass so hard it rattled, and my legs went weak because she had grabbed me in a parking lot and told me she was scared, and I had watched her get in that car, and I did nothing, and the guilt was already crushing me. I didn't grab her arm. I didn't say stay. I just waved back. I ran to the front door and pounded on it with both fists. Her dad opened it, and his face was already crumbling. Have you heard from her? I grabbed the door frame. I was going to ask you the same thing. The police closed the case after a week. I slammed my hands on the detective's desk. Her inhaler is on her nightstand, and she can't breathe without it. He leaned back. We'll keep the file open. She's not a file. I swept the folder off his desk, and papers scattered across the floor, and I shoved his door so hard it cracked against the wall. 3 weeks, and I was the only person still looking. I taped missing posters to every telephone pole with her face smiling from the paper and the bracelet visible on her wrist. I replaced everyone that faded. I called her number every night and listened to the voicemail. Leave me something good. I pounded the steering wheel and screamed her name in the empty car every single time. I carried her inhaler in my backpack every day because she'd need it when I found her. Her dad made me tea every night. Chamomile with honey. Same kind her mom used to make. The smell made me feel safe for the first time in weeks. He squeezed my hand across the table. You're the only one still looking. It's just you and me. I started going over every night. He always had tea ready. He always pulled out the chair for me. He told me stories about her, how she used to hide behind the couch and jump out and scare him, how she threw a chip at his face once, and he pretended to be hurt, and she cried, and he had to convince her he was fine. He'd wipe his eyes, and every story made me miss her so badly I had to get up and pace the kitchen. He pulled out a photo album, and we went through it on the couch. Her and me making stupid faces at a dance with our friendship bracelets visible on both our wrists. He touched that photo, and his laugh crumbled into a sob. I showed him the hidden account, the posts about being followed. He leaned over the screen, and his face crumpled. Why didn't she tell me? He scrolled to a post. He knows where I am. He tapped the screen. She said he. Do you know who she was seeing? I set the mug down because my hands were shaking. Her ex. They broke up a few months ago. He leaned back. Did it go badly? She said he didn't take it well. He pulled out a notebook. We start with him. The last post was a location pin for a trail outside of town. Red clay roads, deep woods. He shook his head. I'll drive. I know the roads. We drove to the ex's apartment. Basement unit with the blinds closed. I pounded on the door so hard my knuckles stung. He opened it halfway, and when he saw me, his face went pale, and he tried tried to shut it, and I shoved my hand against the frame. Where is she? I don't know. She said someone was following her. Someone left notes on her car. His whole body flinched. Was that you? He wouldn't look at me. I can't talk about this. She's been gone for 3 weeks. I know she's missing. He slammed his palm against the doorframe. He looked past me at her dad in the car, and the color drained out of his face so completely he looked like a different person. He grabbed the doorframe. You need to leave. Not until you tell me where she is. You don't understand what's... He looked at the car again, and his jaw locked. I have to go. Don't bring him here again. He shut the door, and I heard 3 locks slide. I was furious and confused, and I kicked his step. Her dad rolled down the window. Guilty people run. Posts kept disappearing from the hidden account. Her dad sat across from me. The ex had her passwords. They dated for a year. He's covering his tracks. I found a draft she'd never finished. If something happens to me, check the... And it cut off. Edited 2 days ago. Someone was erasing this account. Her dad leaned forward. I found something. He pulled up a grainy image on his phone. A car matching the ex's near the trail. And a neighbor near the trail told me she heard screaming from a shed on property that backs up to his apartment. A woman's voice. My whole body went rigid with desperate hope. I grabbed the edge of the table so hard it slid. She's there. He has her in the shed. That's what I think. His eyes were wet. We can't wait for the police. You know how long they took last time. Her dad squeezed my hand. We're going to get her. I squeezed back so hard his knuckles cracked. My whole body was vibrating with desperate hope because after 3 weeks of dead ends, we finally knew where she was. We drove to the trail and I found the friendship bracelet in the dirt by a drainage culvert. I dropped to my knees and clawed the mud away and pressed it against my mouth and sobbed because she had been here. I drove to her dad's house and shoved through the kitchen door and held the bracelet out to him. His knuckles went white around it. Where? The trail, near a drainage culvert. He slid it into his pocket. Evidence. We're building a case. He stepped closer and his voice dropped. We're close. I can feel it. I went back alone. I parked a 1/4 mile from the ex's property and killed the headlights and sat in the dark, gripping the steering wheel until my hands ached. Then I got out. The brush was thick and branches scraped my arms, and I pushed through with my heart slamming so hard I could feel it in my teeth. I could see a shed behind his building, padlocked, a thin line of light coming from under the door. I dropped to my stomach and crawled across the yard inch by inch. The gravel bit into my elbows and knees, and every scrape sounded like a gunshot in the quiet. A motion light on the side of the building flickered, and I flattened myself against the ground and pressed my face into the dirt and waited. It clicked off. I kept crawling. I pressed my ear against the wood and held my breath. Something was moving inside, a scraping sound, a shuffle. I could feel her inhaler in my backpack pressing against my spine. I pressed harder against the door, and my whole body was shaking because my best friend could be 10 feet away from me on the other side of this wall. I was so close to keeping my promise, I could barely think. I grabbed a rock and swung it at the padlock. It bounced off. I swung again harder, and the metal dented. Again. The 4th hit cracked it, and I ripped the lock off and yanked the door open, and my heart was in my throat because I was about to see her face. No bed, no person, no friend, shelves, files, a corkboard covering the entire back wall, photos of her dad, dozens of them, her dad at the trail, her dad's car at the trailhead, her dad's shoe prints in the red clay, a handwritten timeline of her dad's movements for 3 months, notes in the ex's handwriting. He goes to the trail every weekend, same time. She stopped answering after he found out she knew. A circled note at the bottom in red ink. I think he moved her. The root cellar. Check the root cellar. My hands were shaking so hard the photos rattled. I stumbled backward into the door frame so hard it rattled. The room spun and I grabbed the shelf to hold myself up. Everything I'd believed for 3 weeks collapsed in 1 second. The ex wasn't stalking her. He was investigating her dad. He was the only other person still looking for her, and I'd been convinced he was the enemy. The notes on her car weren't threats. They were warnings. "You're not safe at home" was literally true. I grabbed the photos off the wall with shaking hands. I pulled up the location app in the dark. Her phone had pinged at that trail 6 times before she disappeared, every time on a weekend. I checked who else was nearby on those dates. Not the ex, her dad. Same days, same times, every single one. The ex's note said root cellar. Her dad went to the trail every weekend. I dropped to the ground behind the shed, and the horror was so total, I pressed my fists against my temples and rocked forward. Every night at his kitchen table, he poured my tea and squeezed my hand and pointed me at the ex-boyfriend, and I followed every direction rejection because I trusted him more than anyone alive. I scrolled past her voicemail. Leave me something good. I pressed the phone against my forehead, and the fury and the grief and the betrayal hit me all at once because the man I'd been crying with on the couch was the reason she was gone. I drove to his house, and my hands were shaking on the steering wheel, and I was so scared I almost pulled over twice. But my best friend could be dying in a root cellar right now, and I couldn't wait for a warrant. I had to keep him in the house long enough for the police to get to the trail. He opened the door and smiled. Back so soon? I shoved past him into the kitchen and dropped into the chair. He made my tea. Chamomile with honey. Same mug, same spot. I wanted to sweep it off the table. My skin was crawling, and I dug my nails into my thighs under the table. He set it in front of me and sat down and smiled at me the way he always did. You look pale. Are you okay? Just tired. I gripped my own knee under the table so hard my hand cramped because if I didn't hold on to something, I was going to scream. I excused myself to the bathroom. I locked the door and turned on the faucet and called the detective and pressed the phone against my mouth and whispered, "It's her dad. He has her somewhere on the trail property. The ex has proof. Photos, a timeline, everything. I'm in the house right now. Get out of there. We're sending..." Footsteps in the hallway, right outside the bathroom door. I stopped breathing. The footsteps stopped. I pressed myself against the wall. His voice through the door. "Everything okay in there?" "Fine." Stomach thing. Silence. I pressed my hand over my mouth and stared at the ceiling. The footsteps didn't move. He was standing right outside the door. I could see the shadow of his feet in the gap at the bottom. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. The shadow shifted. The footsteps moved away slowly. I flushed the toilet and turned off the faucet and shoved the phone in my back pocket and opened the door. The hallway was empty. I forced myself back to the kitchen and my legs felt like concrete. He was sitting at the table with his hands folded in front of him, and his posture was different, straighter, still. My tea was still steaming. His eyes tracked me as I pulled out my chair and sat down, and I could feel him reading every muscle in my face. "Who were you talking to?" "Nobody. I was on the phone with my mom." He tilted his head. I didn't hear the phone ring. My hands started shaking under the table. She called while I was in there. He held my eyes for 3 seconds. His jaw tightened for a fraction of a second. Then he smiled, but the warmth was gone from it, and his eyes were flat. "Drink your tea." The mug was sitting exactly where I'd left it. My eyes locked on the cup. He was watching me. Neither of us moved. I picked up the mug and took a sip and forced myself to swallow. I set it down. "I should go. It's getting late." I stood up and grabbed my keys off the counter. "Thanks for the tea." I stood up slowly. I grabbed my keys off the counter and my hand was shaking and the keys jingled and I shoved them in my fist to stop the sound. I crossed to the front door in 3 steps and wrapped my hand around the handle and turned. It didn't move. I tried again, harder. Locked. Deadbolt thrown. My hand froze on the metal. It hadn't been locked when I came in. He had locked it while I was in the bathroom. I turned around slowly. He was standing at the end of the hallway watching me. "Sit down." His voice was different. The warm dad voice that made me tea and told me stories about my best friend and squeezed my hand across the kitchen table was gone. What came out was flat and dead, and every hair on my arms stood up. I backed against the door. My hand fumbled for the deadbolt behind my back. He shook his head slowly. "I have the key." I dropped my hand. The windows had bars on the inside. I hadn't noticed them before because they were hidden behind the curtains. He'd been ready for this. "Open the door." "Sit down." "Open the door." "Who did you call?" He took a step toward me. Then another. Each footstep echoed on the hardwood, and I backed up until my shoulder blades hit the door. "I heard you whispering through the door. The faucet doesn't cover sound the way you think it does." He stopped 3 feet away, close enough to grab me. He stopped 3 feet away. "Who did you call?" I grabbed a vase off the hallway table and held it between us. "The police. They're coming." His face crumbled. He pressed both hands over his face and started crying. "She found something she wasn't supposed to find in the basement. She was going to tell people. I took her to the trail house. I told her it was just for a little while. You locked your daughter in a cellar. I take care of her. I bring her food. I check on her every weekend. Every weekend. The location pings. She wouldn't stop screaming. She kept banging on the door. I told her if she was quiet, I'd let her out, but she wouldn't stop. She's your daughter. You told me it was just you and me. You sat across from me every night night and made me tea and squeezed my hand and pointed me at an innocent man while you knew where she was the entire time. You drove me to his apartment and sat in the car and watched me pound on the door of the person who was trying to save her. He flinched like I'd hit him. Where is she? Is she alive? He stared at the floor. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. The dread was so heavy I couldn't move. Is she alive? I screamed it so loud my throat tore. Sirens. So faint at first I thought I was imagining them. Then louder. Red and blue light crept through the curtains and the bars on the windows cast shadows across his face. His head snapped up. He lunged for the back door. He lunged for me and I swung the vase into his chest and it exploded and ceramic shards sprayed across the hallway and he stumbled sideways into the wall. I sprinted past him and his hand caught my sleeve and I ripped free and threw the back door open and screamed into the yard, and officers were already coming around both sides of the house with flashlights cutting through the dark. They grabbed him in the kitchen doorway. He went down hard on the tile and they cuffed him and I could see red clay on his shoes. The same red clay from the trail. From every weekend he drove out there to check on the daughter he'd locked underground. They cuffed him on the floor and he was still crying. She was going to ruin everything. I just needed more time. I was shaking so hard my knees were knocking. The detective walked over. We found a root cellar on the trail property. She was inside. I grabbed his arm with both hands. She's alive. She's been asking for you. She said your name. I hit the ground and curled forward and sobbed so hard I couldn't breathe. The detective crouched next to me. You found her. She's alive because of you. I couldn't speak. They drove me to the hospital and I twisted the matching bracelet around my wrist the entire way. I half ran down the hallway and a nurse pointed me to a room at the end and I sprinted and slammed through the door so hard it bounced off the wall. She was in a bed with IVs and bruises and matted hair, and she was so thin I could see the bones in her hands. She turned her head and the love and the grief and the guilt hit me all at once, and I grabbed the door frame. She held out her hand. I crossed the room and took it, and she squeezed so hard I could feel every bone, and I squeezed back and neither of us let go. She pulled me closer, the person following me, the one I was scared of. I squeezed tighter. She wasn't trying to hurt me. She was trying to warn me. She left notes on my car. She knew what my dad was hiding and she was trying to get me away from him. Her eyes filled with tears. I was so scared of her that I ran to my dad. I told him someone was following me and he held me and told me he'd keep me safe. She pressed her free hand over her face. He was the one I ran to. The person I was hiding from was trying to save me, and the person I was hiding behind was the one I needed saving from, her ex. He tried to tell me. He called me, and I almost didn't believe him because your dad had me so convinced. She closed her eyes. He was the only one who figured it out, and my dad told me he was dangerous, so I got a restraining order against the person trying to save me. The horror of it crushed the air out of my lungs. I grabbed her wrist gently and turned it over. The bracelet was gone. I found it, I whispered. On the trail. Her chin trembled. I pulled it off and dropped it on purpose. I wanted to leave something. I twisted the matching one off my wrist and tied it around hers with shaking hands. Her inhaler was still on her nightstand at home. I played her voicemail on speaker. Leave me something good. Her voice from before filled the room. She closed her eyes and listened. I held her hand. She looked up at me. You kept your promise.